you, Loren, so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Justice. I'm so excited to finally be speaking with you today. I've been looking forward to being a guest on your podcast. Thank you so much for giving me the space to talk about this very important topic, yet so misunderstood many times. So thank you.
Yeah, I love. We had a pre-call conversation before this, and I'll tell you right now, I wish we would have been recording because we had a great conversation. We'll make sure we bring it up here. Um, but we'd love to get started with our Cape U exercise. I'll just remind our listeners it's something about your younger self, one thing about your culture, or something unique about you. You can share one story about any of these, or something quick about all three of them. I'll go first. One thing unique about me that we were actually talking about before the show is I don't talk about this much, but I did actually get second place in a pitch competition. So there was a pitch competition at Denver Startup Week. I entered in it. I got selected to be one of the companies who pitched. I ended up pitching. I actually won $10,000 from it. It was a really great experience. I think my favorite thing was meeting the other founders. And I think the best part is it didn't really feel like a competition, like it was us versus each other. It really felt like it was supportive, like we were just trying to help each other, give as much advice, as much time as we could, and like, oh, have you thought about that for your product for this? And I think it's one of the unique things about startup cultures and just specifically founders being founders around other founders that I absolutely love. So I think it's one of my favorite fondest memories is not only winning second place, but just being a part of it. It was something that was really
Mhm.
amazing, and I love the people that I met. So that's something unique about me that not a lot of people know. But now I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Justice. I think, something about my younger self, I was always curious, always an explorer. Um, People don't understand that about me, and I think that permeates everything I do. One thing I like about my culture is that we are so ingenious. There are so many things that people have created, invented, or done that just continues to amaze me. And something unique about me is similar to what I mentioned about my younger self. Is that I'm highly curious, highly curious, and my brain operates in a level on a level of creativity that many still try to understand, and I don't think it'll ever make any sense to anybody.
That's fantastic. It's funny you say that about curiosity. I couldn't agree more with you. And I think it's also something interesting that we talked about a little bit earlier was um, it's something that I don't think everyone necessarily thinks about when they think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't think about people naturally being curious and creative. Talk a little bit more about what does that mean to you to be curious and creative, specifically in the diversity, equity, and inclusion field.
Especially in the DEI field, it's important to stay curious because it's in curiosity that we gain understanding, right? When we're trying to approach it from an expert perspective, it connotates a lack of humility. And staying in curiosity helps you bring this childlike curiosity to things, where you're always asking why. You're always in a state of wondering. And it moves you away from being in a state of judgment
Mm.
and labeling, and more towards a space of connection and collectiveness.
Yeah, I think the analogy you use of kids is really interesting. It makes me think of, man, when you look at kids play on the playground and you watch them interact with each other, it's amazing how many of the things that now as adults we would struggle with making the same connection, right? Where kids, not only I think that they have that curiosity about like, hey, I want to learn about you, I want to play with you, but it's also the kids' level of forgiveness. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but just kind of the ability to say, yeah, like you probably didn't say that right. I still want to play this game. I'm gonna correct you, but like let's keep playing. Like the point of the game is let's keep playing. And I love that. And I
Yes.
thought the analogy you used was really spot on.
Thank you. I always say that kids are so much more evolved than adults are. As adults, we are shaped by so many things, our lived experiences, our the societal expectations that are placed upon us, right? Regardless of where you fall in the identity spectrum. Kids are, raw. They're raw. They're in this raw, curious state where everything has a sense of wonder. They look at the sky and they wonder, oh, why is the sky blue? Oh, why are the clouds white and why are they shaped differently? There's this continuous sense of uh, just curiosity, right? And it's beautiful to see that innocence and bringing a little bit of that into our day to day experiences as adults actually helps us navigate all these differences that we encounter on a day to day basis.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think the one thing I was curious about asking you was when you take that curiosity and you go into organizations, how do you broach that with them? How do you help them come to a better understanding of diversity, of equity, and inclusion while keeping that curiosity?
Always asking more questions than giving the advice. It's
Interesting.
interesting to see how I'll have two companies say to me, we need a DEI intervention, right? It starts with that. And once I start navigating their journey and ask deeper and deeper questions, it always ends up being something else. And so, bringing that sense of curiosity helps me hold judgment while at the same time honoring the individuality of the organization. No two companies are the same. And so, why should my approach be the same for any two companies?
I think that's such an excellent approach because I think a lot of times what you see in this field are blanket approaches of people who say, it's a one size fit all. Every program needs to have X or do X. And while there are similarities across, the overall goal of a D&I program, the way I think companies can achieve them or move forward on their journey is very different. So I think it's an excellent point of asking more questions that and giving prescriptions makes a lot of sense. You don't go to the doctor and you say, "Oh, I think my stomach's hurt," and they're like, "Okay, here's a prescription," right? They ask a lot of questions. How long has that been happening? What does that look like? Right? It needs to be prescriptive. So I really, really like that approach a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in that prescribing process, right? I always like to make sure that the organization as a whole feels seen and heard.
Mm,
A lot of times leaders know what they need to do, they don't know how.
yes.
And so having that dialogue is important because it helps them also feel like they're part of the process, but that every single aspect of the prescription, right, using your same analogy, whatever it may be, includes everyone at every level, even that leader who does not understand how. And also helping them understand that it's okay. It's okay that you don't know how. You don't have all the answers. You're not supposed to. But the simple fact that you're addressing it here and you're committing to being part of the change is enough.